The email hit my inbox at 8:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: Formal notice of internal investigation. No greeting. No warmth. Just that flat, corporate tone that always means trouble. I read it twice, then once more just to confirm I wasn't missing anything. HR had opened a formal investigation into multiple claims regarding workplace conduct, data handling, and professional behavior. My name sat there in bold like it had always belonged in that sentence. For months, it would later turn out. But in that moment, I just leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling tiles above my desk. Yeah, that didn't sit right. I didn't argue. Didn't storm into HR, didn't even reply to the email right away. I just closed my laptop, grabbed my coffee, and went back to work like nothing had changed. That was the first mistake they expected me to make. And the first one I didn't. A few months earlier, everything had been manageable. Not great. Not terrible. Just that steady, quiet kind of career you build when you're not trying to be the loudest person in the room. I worked as a senior data analyst at a mid-sized logistics firm in Chicago. Clean office. Glass walls. Too many meetings. I kept my head down. Delivered results. Stayed out of office politics as much as possible. Which, in hindsight, was probably the problem. Because people like me, we're easy to overlook. Easy to talk over in meetings. Easy to assign extra work to. Easy to ignore, until something goes wrong. And something always goes wrong. His name was Derek Collins. Director level. Early 40s. Expensive watch, louder voice. The kind of guy who didn't just walk into a room, he claimed it. Sat at the head of tables even when he wasn't leading the meeting. He had that polished, confident tone that made everything he said sound final, even when it wasn't. Let's keep this simple, he'd say, leaning back, hands folded. We don't need overcomplicated analysis here. Which usually meant, stop questioning him. The first time he cut me off mid-sentence, I thought it was just a bad day. The second time, I adjusted. By the fifth time, I just nodded like, sure, whatever. Because I'd seen his type before. Pushy, confident, a little too comfortable bending the rules, but always just enough to stay clean on paper. He didn't shout. He didn't insult directly. But there was always that tone. That slight smile when he dismissed your input. Like you were, background noise. And the worst part? Everyone else went along with it. Why don't you say something? Maya asked me one night. We were sitting in her kitchen, takeout containers between us, her dog curled up at our feet. She'd been my closest friend for years, sharp, perceptive, and completely immune to corporate nonsense. Because it won't change anything, I said, stirring my noodles without eating them. That's not true. It is with him. She watched me for a second. Or you just don't want the fight. I shrugged. I don't need the fight. Maya leaned back, arms crossed. You've been covering for him, you know that? That got my attention. I'm not covering for anyone. You fix his reports. You double-check his numbers. Half the time, you're correcting mistakes no one even knows he made. I didn't respond. Because she wasn't wrong. Derek had a habit of pushing deadlines fast and loose. Cutting corners in data validation. Presenting numbers that, let's just say, leaned in his favor. Nothing outright illegal. Nothing you could easily pin down. But enough that someone careful had to clean it up before it reached the wrong eyes. That someone had quietly become me. I'm just making sure the work is solid, I said. Maya gave me a look. Yeah. And when it blows up? I paused. She didn't need to finish the sentence. The first crack showed up in early spring. Quarterly review meeting. Big one. Executives dialed in. Slides polished, numbers locked. Derek led the presentation. Confident. Smooth. Like always. I sat 2 seats down, laptop open, following along. And then I saw it. One line in the revenue projection. Small discrepancy. Easy to miss. But I knew the dataset. I'd worked on it the night before. That number wasn't just off. It had been adjusted. Deliberately. My stomach tightened. Derek kept talking, voice steady. As you can see, projected growth aligns with our expansion strategy. I glanced around the room. No one else had noticed. I had 2 options. Speak up. Or stay quiet. I stayed quiet. And that was the moment everything shifted. The investigation started 3 weeks later. Anonymous complaints, they said. Concerns about data integrity. Questions about unauthorized adjustments. My name attached to every one of them. At first, I almost laughed. It was too clean. Too convenient. But HR doesn't deal in coincidence. They deal in documentation. And someone had already started building a case. The first interview was polite. Just routine, the HR rep said, smiling like we were discussing weekend plans. I nodded. Answered questions carefully. Yes, I worked on those reports. Yes, I had access to the datasets. No, I didn't make unauthorized changes. They wrote everything down. Every word. Every pause. And I realized something important. This wasn't an investigation. It was a narrative being assembled. And I was already cast in the role. So I stopped reacting. And I started watching. Every email. Every file version. Every access log. I went back months. Quietly pulling records. Not downloading anything I wasn't allowed to, just reviewing what was already there. Patterns started to emerge. Late-night edits from Derek's login. Version overrides right before presentations. Small adjustments. Consistent direction. And most importantly, timing. He always made changes after I'd finalized the data. Which meant one thing. He needed my work to be clean. So his changes wouldn't stand out. I leaned back in my chair one evening, office nearly empty, city lights reflecting off the glass walls. That's when I knew. This wasn't random. This was strategy. And he'd been using me as cover. I didn't confront him. Didn't escalate. Instead, I started documenting. Carefully. Methodically. Dates. Timestamps. File histories. I cross-referenced everything with system logs. Built a quiet, airtight timeline. It took weeks. HR kept calling me in. More questions. More pressure. Help us understand the discrepancies. Is there anything you'd like to clarify? I kept my tone calm. Consistent. No. Because the truth is, I didn't need to clarify. Not yet. The trigger came sooner than I expected. Another executive meeting. Bigger stakes this time. Derek was presenting again. New projections. Aggressive numbers. I'd reviewed the base data the day before. Clean. Accurate. But something in his tone, that same slight edge, told me he'd done it again. Mid-presentation, one of the VPs interrupted. Can we pull up the source data on that? Derek hesitated. Just for a second. But I saw it. Of course, he said, smiling. He clicked through slides. Opened the file. And there it was. The adjusted number. The same pattern. The same mistake. Only this time, it didn't match the system log. Because I'd made sure of it. After the meeting, HR called for a full review. Not just of me. Of everything. That's when I finally spoke. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I said, sliding a folder across the table. Printed logs. Timelines. Clean and organized. The HR rep frowned slightly. What is this? A record of data access and modifications over the past 4 months. Silence. They started reading. Slowly. Carefully. I didn't rush them. Didn't explain. Just sat there, hands folded, watching the shift happen in real time. Derek was called in the next day. I wasn't in the room. But I didn't need to be. The tone in the office changed almost immediately. Quieter. Tighter. People avoided eye contact. Meetings got shorter. And Derek wasn't leading them anymore. A week later, HR asked me in for a final meeting. Different room this time. Bigger. 2 reps, 1 from legal. That told me everything. We've completed our review, one of them said. I nodded. Based on the evidence, we've determined that the discrepancies were not initiated by you. I let that sit. We appreciate your cooperation. Polite. Professional. But there was a shift now. Respect, maybe. Or caution. And Derek? I asked. They exchanged a glance. He is no longer with the company. Of course he wasn't. I walked out of the building that evening slower than usual. City air felt different. Lighter. Not because I'd won. But because something had finally settled. 4 months of quiet pressure. Of being watched, questioned, doubted. All of it, gone. Maya met me that night. Same kitchen. Same takeout. She studied my face for a second. You look different. Do I? Yeah, she said, handing me a drink. Less patient. I smiled slightly. I think I'm done being patient for the wrong reasons. She raised an eyebrow. So what happens now? I thought about that. About the office. The meetings. The quiet corrections no one noticed. Then I shook my head. I don't think I stay. Maya grinned. Finally. I gave my notice 2 weeks later. No drama. No speeches. Just a short meeting. A clean exit. Because the truth is, I didn't need to stay where I had to prove my integrity after the fact. I'd already done that. On my terms. Last day, I packed my desk slowly. Same way I'd worked. Carefully. Deliberately. As I walked out, I passed the glass conference room where Derek used to sit. Empty now. Just a chair. A table. Nothing else. Funny how power looks permanent, until it isn't. People think vindication is loud. That it comes with speeches, confrontations, some big moment where everything flips. But it doesn't. Not really. Sometimes, it's just quiet. A shift in tone. A change in how people look at you. And the simple, undeniable fact that the truth didn't need help being loud. The last thing Maya said to me that night stayed with me. You didn't beat him, she said. I looked at her. She smiled slightly. You just let him show everyone who he really was. And honestly, that was always the plan.